Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland podcast of pain, also known as the preview show. Sunderland have taken 1 point from games against Bolton, Cheltenham, Wimbledon and Doncaster in the past month, and yet still are not the worst thing about the club. With today's confirmation that the Mad Rocks team of Stuart Donald, Charlie Methven and Juan Sartori own far more of Sunderland as a collective than alleged majority owner Kirill Louis Dreyfus. For the element of doubt, Mad Rocks, and specifically Charlie Methven, an Eton-educated PR executive, as he's known, according to reports, claimed people in the North East don't understand business, alongside a whole host of derogatory and insulting comments. But after all, away from all the noise of snake oil salesmen is a game of football on Saturday, which is kind of the reason we all follow this club. And we will be discussing the game today. And joining me again to discuss our game with promotion rivals, MK Dons, and their season so far, is Liam from the wonderful MK1 Podcast. Liam, forgive my small rant at the beginning, but how are you doing? Are you all right?
Yeah, well, good. It sounds a bit of a drama at Sunderland, but that's nothing new, is it? As we all know.
No, it's not, mate. It's not. Hopefully it doesn't make it on Netflix this time, but yeah, things aren't great here, but nonetheless, I'm going to say nothing 3 points can't fix, but I'm probably lying with that. I think we need probably a bit more of a fix, but nonetheless, 3 points is always nice on a weekend. And we'll start from the off. As I kind of just alluded to, you can't fail to have noticed there's a lot of noise around Sunderland at the moment, but there is a new manager there, but the team bang out of form, like really out of form. As an MK Dons fan, technically you still are our promotion rivals. We're still in and around the mix at the minute. Hopefully we still are come the end of the season. But from the outside looking in, this is the best or the worst time to face Sunderland?
It depends how you look at it, really. I believe it's Neil's first home game, so it's it's going to be a sellout crowd, I imagine, back in the Mackems in terms of that sense. So you look at it that way in terms of there's the boys crowd. Obviously, the previous game you had Jermaine Defoe returning. That was quite a lively atmosphere then. So yeah, you could say we're up against it in many ways, and obviously looking at Sunderland's home form, regardless of the manager going, it's still second best in the league. So even the previous manager, you were really good at home. So it's a difficult challenge, but at the same time, has Alex Neil already had time to implement his strategies and his ways of playing? Of course, he had a week training this week, no midweek fixture, which I'm sure he's very pleased with in terms of that. But I would side towards it's bad for an MK Dons perspective personally, in terms of the new man. It's a bit of unpredictability. That's always that factor there with with any team that's getting a new manager in. And as I said, with that alongside the fans getting to see, the majority of Sunderland fans getting to see an Alex Neil side for the first time, it could be a recipe for success on Saturday anyway.
Jesus, I wish I had your confidence in Sunderland, Craigie. But MK Dons, on the flip side, you come into the game on the back of a board draw and 0-0 draw at home. But looking at the stats, and that's all I've seen in that sort of 2-minute highlights you see on Quest, seemed to be quite an entertaining game in terms of shots and in terms of possession. Stats indicate a fairly even game as well. What was the weekend game like for you?
Yeah, it was all right. Obviously, Ipswich are a very good team. They've basically got a championship goalie in goal in Walton. He's very, very good. And I'd say we just about edged it overall. I think we had the better chances. Twiney had a few good chances. But yeah, Walton saved them all. I saw some people saying that puts Sav automatics. I don't agree whatsoever. I think there's a long way to go yet. And eight points realistically from Rotherham. So let's say Wigan get, 6 points in their games in hand, for example. So they'll be top. But yeah, an 8 point gap when you've got to play Rotherham ourselves, yeah, I think it's definitely achievable to try and beat. And as I've seen in League One this season, Plymouth apparently were, guaranteed for playoffs a couple of months ago. Now they're not even in it. So yeah, it's top turvy league. But yeah, on to Saturday, it was okay. I thought we played all right. Obviously January for us, funnily enough, our manager of the month, Liam Manning, one manager of the month in League One, and we actually had about, I think it's like loads of transactions, like double-digit transactions for players in and out of the club. So the fact that Liam and team have managed to get that accolade for, essentially a team that was completely overturned in the space of basically 2 weeks is quite incredible, to be honest. And of course, we've seen players like Matarani go smash it up at Celtic, which is excellent to see. Yeah, I mean, to try and talk about the game on Saturday in too much detail was pointless, because it wasn't the best game in the world. It was two quite defensively solid teams as of recently, battling it out. Both had decent chances. I felt we edged it just about, which is a good sign. Edging it against a pretty informed team. But the hope is that we can go to, well, from our perspective anyway, go to Sunderland on Saturday. Let's set the party a little bit.
Well, a few teams have recently. So, but fingers crossed, we proved me wrong. Who knows? But when it comes to current form, I'm sure you know this, but you've got the best away form in the league over the past 6 games, winning 4, drawing 2, losing none, obviously, and scoring, I think, is it 9 at the moment, and conceding 4 along that lines. Basically, you're doing all right. Your home form over the past 6 games has you down in 19th. So why have MK Dons been better away from home recently as opposed to at home?
I think if you ask our manager regarding the home form, it'd be teams setting up a certain way against us. So Gillingham's a prime example. When actually, funny enough, our keeper now, Jamie Cumming, was playing that day for Gillingham, just sitting back, absorbing all the pressure, absorbing all the shots. Very similar to how certain teams played against Russell Martin MK Dons last season. And us not really having the quality in the box to break it down at times. But when teams typically try to play against us, like play football against us, we tend to do quite well. And I think a lot of our away games recently have been against teams like that. And I suppose the ones that weren't really was Accrington, especially where we were down. They were down to 10 men by the 30th minute, and we were very similar to the home games, backs against the wall, trying to break them down. We're fairly unlucky not to score, but we still had the chances. And again, it's no 2 points that felt like it got away. So yeah, away from home, I think overall it's a mix of teams actually want to play against us, having the confidence to play at home, allowing us to release our sort of, I personally think, the best football in the league in terms of how we play it. And when we do play it on the day, it's lethal. I think anyone in the league based on the way we play away from home against teams that like to play against us. And yeah, I think especially when teams come to Stadium MK, obviously it wasn't the case for Sunderland the first day of the season, but a lot of teams see it as a bit of a bigger occasion, and just because of the venue they go to, they see the stadium, oh, it's incredible, and they play up to they want to play in those venues realistically going into their careers, so they play up for those type of games. I think it makes it harder for us, and I think some of our home games recently have been quite tough ones as well. So it's a weird one, and obviously going to Sunderland on Saturday, who are one of the better home teams. It's very interesting to see who comes out on top, the good home team or the good away team.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, our home form has been good over the course of the season. Obviously, Doncaster will write that one off. We're going to have to. We'll kind of go back and change it, sadly. So, and aside from that, you're looking at the one defeat being Charlton. So, it's fair to say that maybe Sunderland fans aren't the problem. For those listening and understanding what I'm saying. But last time we faced each other, you touched on it there, the 2-1 win. It felt like a big win at the time for Sunderland. And I think we had a really good start of the season, and beating MK Dons and Wickham around that period were really, really important at the time for our ambition, which probably isn't going to happen, but was automatic promotion, or still probably should be if we can. But you just lost your manager in the same way that we've just lost ours, and you brought a manager in pretty much on that day. I think it's fair to say he didn't really have much of a chance to work with the team whatsoever, a bit like Lee Johnston with us last season. Many people felt that when Russell Martin had built a philosophy and a mindset and a way of playing, and people from the outside of the club, I know you weren't as much, but were a little bit worried that bringing in Liam Manning, untried, untested in a sense, and getting rid of Russell Martin, who'd done a good job or a good start of the job, might not work out for MK Dons, despite the fact he had a really good summer. But you sit third in the league, far from out of automatics, in my personal opinion. Obviously, Wigan have got 4 games in hand, but you need to win those games in hand, and Sunderland fans will know that's not always the case. How would you sum up Liam Manning's first sort of 6 to 8 months in his time at MK Dons?
Yeah, he's been fantastic. I don't think there's no way to describe it, to be honest. I think some fans will say he's had it on a bit of a silver platter in many senses with the players that have been recruited. And to be fair, that's true. But, at the end of the day, I think you've got the whole point of appointing Manning was so he could carry on the work of Russell Martin. I don't think the club were very, I don't know what the word is, were very discreet with that sort of way of going with that. They weren't trying to get this new manager in who brings his own philosophies in. It was very much carry on as normal. And and it was revealed to us when Matt O'Reilly left that the squad's ambition this season was to get playoffs at a minimum. And we're not comfortable in the playoffs yet. Don't get me wrong, but we're pretty much there. I think as long as we don't have a complete disaster end to the season, which I don't think we will under Manning. It's even brilliant. Yeah, we've achieved the minimum at the very least. I feel this squad has obviously Liam Manning's had to incorporate his own elements to it, brought in his own coaching staff, brought in the likes of Connor Wickham recently, Connor Coventry, of course, Dan Kemp, players he worked with previously, which I think is a really good trait of his. You know, understanding players who don't have a short turnaround time, understanding the system whilst adding like really good depth to the squad. And if needed, can come on and do a job. The Connor Coventry's done brilliantly since he came in from West Ham. Been one of the standout performers easily this season, since January anyway. But yeah, overall, is the way he thinks. I think he's a very neutral head of the coaching staff. Anyway, he says himself all the time, doesn't get too high when we win and doesn't get too low when we lose. He tries to, and he's got a lot of personality in that dressing room. Like Mo Ice, for example, is a massive personality, and then him and Troy Parrott, both strikers, who, I think it's fair to say they do fall victim to getting too high when they're on good form and dropping it completely when they aren't, essentially. I think Manning's trying to incorporate his own style on those guys. It's very much a communication, I think, base. And I think overall, looking at his background, I wasn't, as you know, Gray, I wasn't unfazed at all when he joined. I thought the ambition was still going to be playoffs and top two, hopefully, because we all knew the squad was good enough. I think any MK Dons fan would look at that squad and say, especially now at the start of the season, for us, we were kind of like, yeah, we'll be fine. Like, you're bringing in players like Scott Twine, and we all know the quality of Matt O'Reilly already before he joined Celtic. And yeah, it's a very good team. And I feel this season we actually are underachieving in terms of league position. But listen, I think with all the sort of transition that the squad's had, I feel to still be in the playoffs and still be where we are in third place is a credit to Manning and a credit to his job so far.
I hate to bring it up and mention it, but I think last time we spoke sort of on a podcast, we did chat about Russell Martin and thoughts on him and the fact he moved to Swansea. I'll be honest, I don't watch a great deal of Championship football because the one time we were in it, we fell straight through it and we went in it 10 years beforehand. So I'm very unrehearsed in the Championship. But I mean, he's doing okay at Swansea. He's implementing his philosophy that he seems to have. He's still building that reputation. I think last time we spoke, obviously there's going to be a little bit of animosity towards him in the way that he left and the things that he said and the way that he did it. How's the feeling now? Now that he's been gone 6 to 8 months, is it just like, well, that's in the past, it is what it is, or is there still a little bit of underlying frustration at him?
No, there wasn't any frustration from my part. I think on the Swansea point, it's going to take a League One level will take him 18 months to get to the level to which he was playoff form. So transitioning that to the Championship is going to take seasons. It's at least 2 seasons realistically to get to the level that we want to be in terms of challenging for playoffs. On the move, I've heard bits and bobs about the move since it happened, and yeah, it does sound like a complete mess. And that's the issue when fans don't really get communicated properly on certain things, is that they make stuff up and then it goes around and people believe it as true, and then obviously you get elements that come out that you maybe don't think are true and actually are. It's a very difficult situation. I don't think many people, or still to this day, I'm not a big fan of Russell Martin, and I completely understand why. I wouldn't say I'm a biggest fan either. I don't have any animosity towards him, but it's not exactly a situation that I'm very keen on him to do well, because he left the club a complete obviously mess, to be honest with you, in terms of football operations on the pitch. But yeah, listen, I hope he does well. Obviously, he's had a bit of okay start, I think, considering what he's trying to do. Obviously, it's never going to be an easy road, and I think anyone a part of the team there will understand that that's where they are right now. And it was the same with us the first season he was here. So if it's staying on that track, second season should be quite a positive one for them, where they could be top half or even playoffs. So yeah, I think he'll be fine. He's got decent coach staff with him, decent analysis team, and they'll do well. It's a shame it wasn't here.
It's interesting you spoke before about the team and kind of what he's implementing and things like that in terms of Liam Manning. There was there was actually a presser after the game, which is technically a conversation, I suppose, with Alex Neil. And he sort of nailed the issues that Sunderland have been having recently, discussing the fact that there's too many young players playing their first season in professional football and they played too many games and they're maybe a little bit tired, like exhausted. I think you name names, but Callum Doyle, Dan Neil, players that it's their first full season mixed alongside experienced players that really haven't had enough match fitness. And I'm guessing he was looking at the likes of Defoe, and there's very little in between for us. You could maybe say Ross Stewart, but he's only 24. He's not exactly an old man. A lot of the players have come from either lower end Premier League sides or Championship teams, or a couple from elsewhere like Bayern Munich, but not many of them have experience, or they've got too much experience and haven't played enough. And yet, when you look at MK Dons' team, I'd kind of almost half agree that that's really similar. You've got Lewington, who's obviously experienced. Josh McEachran's obviously experienced and been around a long, long time. And Scott Twine's maybe not the youngest man on the planet, but he's certainly not the oldest. You have a mix of players there, that bit of experience, but mainly a lot of youth. Why does that work for MK Dons and maybe not at a club like Sunderland?
It's a great question. I think personally for me, it's just, I think we believe in youth a lot better than most clubs do. And maybe that becomes being a young club at heart ourselves, maybe, and that makes sense. But I think whenever we've had coaches in, even from like the Di Matteo days and the Martin Allen days, in some senses, we've actually believed in younger players. I don't feel Sunderland for me have always been a club that have recruited like really like savvy, Asian, not Asian, it's the wrong word, like veteran players, terms like Seb Larson, for example, and of course Defoe's, who have come in previously, done really well for them, and that's kind of the model from a higher up sense. Whereas now, obviously, I just mentioned some of the younger players there. You are where you are in terms of league position and then the third level of English football, and I'm not sure they're fully adapted to it, and that's maybe why there's been always talk about it's definitely Sunderland's year this year. And to be fair, I thought it was your year this year. I genuinely did. I thought the start of the season you'd be right up there. I thought Ross Stewart would do really well, and he has, to be fair. He's kind of been a one-man band in many senses. And you'd be doing pretty much what Rotherham are doing right now. For you two really tussling at the top, and then the rest of us would have fallen in place. And for whatever reason, that's not been the case. I'm sure it's been moved on now, and Lee Johnson moving on. But yeah, I just feel it's been I don't think it's this season alone that Sunderland have had this issue. I think it's been an ongoing thing for years. And I think you'll find that in most clubs in terms of issues that you feel just rising to the surface now. It's probably happened 3 to 5 years in the past, and it's still going on now. But hopefully the ownership issue sorts itself out sooner rather than later. As I think until that sort of resolves itself, it could be a difficult time for Sunderland fans.
I think you've nailed it there, mate. I think we said earlier in the review podcast about Sunderland, obviously everyone's got a different opinion, but one of the guests on the review show said until they go, I think it's always going to be the same issue. And I think a lot of Sunderland fans feel exactly the same way. So if you can see it from the outside looking in, I think it's fair to say that that's maybe a valid opinion. But back on MK Dons, touched on Scott Twine, or Twiney, as you called him, as we all do pick up nicknames, as we do. He's been the standout player this year. He's 22. He scored 13 goals. He's assisted 9. A phenomenal record, to be completely honest, for someone who, in my opinion, is not a direct centre forward. He's more of a wing forward, if you prefer, in the way that you play. But just how important has he been to the side?
Oh yeah, it's incredible. He is that game changer you need in the squad, and I think if it does come down to playoffs this season, which I really hope it doesn't, I hope we're in the top 2, to be quite honest with you. But if it does come down to playoffs, then I think he is the player who gets us through and beats all of the teams below us. If we are third, for example, I generally think he is that good. He should not be playing League One. That's for damn sure. And I think if there's a lot of, I think for me, he's closer to a Premier League talent than he's Championship talent right now. It's very similar to we had the whole Lewis Baker and Dele Alli debate 5 or 6 seasons ago. We were actually went promoted to the Championship for the first time as MK Dons, and it was always, I think Lewis Baker was the more raw talent, but Dele Alli was the game changing talent, and he was so young at the time. And I think it's the same conversation with Matt O'Reilly and Scott Twine. I think Matt O'Reilly is technically a very, very good player, probably the best we've had at the club. But Scott Twine is that game-changing player who can just find goals out of nowhere. And he's very unlucky not to score the winner against Ipswich if it wasn't for Walton and his extreme length as a goalkeeper. But yeah, I think every team around this has had the game changer. Obviously, as I said, Ipswich got Walton. We've got Twine. I think you've got Stewart. So those, when I look for teams that are going to do really well, I feel I look for those game changing players, and I think Twine is that for us. And yeah, the fact that we got him for, I think it was 400k in the end from a tribunal. I mean that is, I think if that's not signing in a season, I don't know what is, to be honest.
He did really well for Swindon last year. And I mean, all due respect to Swindon, but obviously loads of strangers is one of my friends on here if he's listening. I'm guessing he's not going to, but if he was, obviously he might disagree with me here, but Swindon were absolutely honking last year. They were really poor, and they're eighth at the moment in the League Two, and they've improved a little bit, but I think a lot of things didn't work out for them, and yet he still got, I think, 7 and 20. I'm guessing he got injured towards the end of it, because obviously I think he would have played all the games, and Sunderland fans will particularly remember him when we were all watching games on streams, which feels like a long time ago, hitting the crossbar from about 40 yards out. Might be exaggerating that in the 94th minute. But yeah, he looked good for Swindon last year, and a side that really wasn't pulling up any trees, if we're honest. So it's not a big surprise. But someone who I've watched obviously a lot closer, due to my allegiance has been on the blue side of Glasgow up here, I must be honest. I'm sure people know that. I'm sure I'm not letting anyone down. But Matt O'Reilly went, and he's done really well for Celtic since he's gone there. Excellent in the old firm. And Ange Postecoglou at Celtic is recruited incredibly well. You can't deny it. How big of a loss was he, and do you think the fee was enough?
Yeah, I think it is. But that's on the basis that we know that there's going to be a sell-on clause if he moves on from Celtic. So, and that'll be a significant sell-on clause also. So I think it all works out fine. But yeah, listen, I think everyone knew that Matt O'Reilly was going to smash it up in Celtic. That's no surprise to anyone. As I said, I think it's not up to debate. He was one of the best technical players I've had at the club ever. I think that's a fair statement to make. He was absolutely fantastic. A bit like Twine, to be honest. The fact that he's playing League One football for, I think it was 12 months technically, but 18 months at the club, really, with 6 months like training, not officially signed. It was generally enjoyed to watch, and I think that was the overriding message. And I think I'll say it on our pod, these players are going to move on, so just enjoy them while we have them. Because obviously we're still a League One club, and hopefully we're not come August this year, sorry. But for now we are, and players like Twine and O'Reilly don't come on very often. We've had to wait 5-6 years for him really to come back again since Ali and Baker. So yeah, the fact that we have them, and hopefully they are more current now, we have a proper recruitment team in place. But yeah, enjoy while we have them. That was certainly the case with Matt. I don't think it's been too big of a loss. Obviously I mentioned Connor Coventry coming in from West Ham. He's been fantastic as that kind of, I think he describes himself as a 4, but it's more of a 6 for me in terms of his role. So being a pivot, just distributing the football, making sure it's tick along nicely and winning it back when he needs to. I think the first couple of games he struggled a little bit, but after that he's been absolutely fantastic. I think it's safe to say he could have been man of the matches back to back, the way he's performed against Fleetwood and Ipswich. So really impressed with him. And then alongside him, Josh McKeckren's taking that more progressive role in terms of passing the football. Actually surprised me how well he's done. I didn't think he'd do as well as he has, to be honest with you. But that's of course only a good thing. And Josh is a veteran player who's been brilliant to this team. But yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens when the likes of David Kasuma eventually comes back again with another injury. But yeah, listen, I think the team's just full of depth now. Obviously we had a lot of business on deadline day in terms of getting Kane Hessler in, Dan Kemp. I'm forgetting another player. Who is it? I forgot his name. This is embarrassing. Anyway, yeah, 3 players brought in on deadline day, and they're all brilliant signings. And I haven't seen too much of them, to be fair, because I missed the Fleetwood game. Physically, I watched it on my laptop, so I watched Hessler. He looked decent. But yeah, it's interesting to see how it all develops. But no, I don't think we'll miss him too much. He's a very good player, but we've got enough depth in the squad now to push on.
It's really interesting that I read today that he's aiming for a call up to the Denmark squad, which absolutely baffled me because he's played, I think, for England under 20s or 19s or something. But there was something in the Glasgow Times today. He's aiming for a Denmark call up. Apparently, he's eligible due to a cousin or something like that. So he's aiming to get into the Denmark squad for the World Cup. Matt O'Reilly playing for Denmark doesn't sound right, but good luck, I guess. One name that Sunderland fans are going to recognise, which feels kind of weird, but it's League One sometimes throws up those names about people you'd completely forgot about, as someone we once paid 10 million for and sold for 9 million, Connor Wickham. He's had a horrendous time with injuries, but apart from a really weird spell where he just scored against Man City, Chelsea and Man United, Connor Wickham hasn't really he didn't really do that much at Sunderland, and then he got an injury, and then he went to Palace, and things sort of fell apart from at Palace because of his cruciate injuries. I think he spent a little bit of time at Preston beforehand, which didn't work out. He's landed at MK Dons. Has he played much? And when he has, does he look like the Connor Wickham of that everyone rated when he was 17, 18 years old?
He hasn't started yet, I don't believe. He's definitely made a few sub appearances. The latest one being against Ipswich on Saturday. Yeah, I think obviously this won't actually get revealed to us because it never really does. But I feel with Wickham coming in to Dons, it was more the fact that he could be a game changer off the bench. I spoke about we have different game changers on all sides of the pitch. So we have Cumming in goal, Darling in centre back, probably McKechran now really at centre mid, and then we have Twine in the 10. And for me, I think Wickham alongside Kemp really are two players who can bring some off the bench to which can change the game. So obviously, listen, last time Sunderland fans saw him, he's a different player, really different expectations. I think for us now, it's more about him just coming off the bench for 20 to 30 minutes. Say we're up against it. Say we're even down 2-0 or something. He can come on, be that physical presence in the box, try and support our players like Twine, even Kane Hessler when he's playing, instead of just creating shoot opportunities for them. And if he scores it himself, for happy days. On his debut, it was a tough finish, but he could have scored on his debut. He's been okay, but I don't think his role was ever to come in and be, listen, you're starting every week. As this is a big target, man, we're going to lump it up to you straight away. That's never going to be the plan. I think he was always going to sit behind Mo Iso and even Troy Parrott to some extent. And, I think he understands that role. I think overall he's just happy that someone's taking a chance on him really and giving an opportunity. And hopefully it pays off. But it's end of season contract. It's nothing too long term. And I think he understands his role basically.
Yeah, I think he's had a really tough few years, and he didn't fulfill his potential at Sunderland, and probably hasn't fulfilled his potential that was really high when he first came to the club when he started Ipswich. But I think pretty much everyone at Sunderland hopes that he cracks on and does well, just not on bloody Saturday, which is obviously going to happen now that I've said it. We touched on Sunderland at the beginning of the show before, problems that we face, the form that we've got, but that can change. Form can change. Like it can change overnight. We could win on Saturday and go on a great run, and you never know. We started the season well. We now look to be in a battle for the playoffs, truth be told, which literally is a bit depressing, if I'm honest, after the way we started the season. And there's no right or wrong answer to this. I don't think anyone's going to be offended the way we feel at the moment. But are Sunderland a side that MK Dons fans would fear should you face us in the playoff, or based on our record in the playoffs and based on the way that we always seem to somehow bottle it, are you technically hoping that we're going to be there so you can face us?
So if we look at the playoffs now, say the playoffs going as they are, I'll be more worried to face Plymouth than I am Sunderland. I think Plymouth are very similar to us in terms of how they play football. They've got really, really good players. And I think the time we did play in this season, we didn't struggle, but, it was a really even game. And obviously we're playing last day of the season also. So I'd rather not play Plymouth, to be honest. I think hopefully we're, in the top tier and they're down in 7th or 8th, doing really struggling, because I do not want to play Plymouth. I think that's the one team I'm kind of want to avoid, to be honest. My ideal, if it was to say this for, I'd rather play Wickham out of anyone. I think Wickham, beaten twice this season, they're not a very good team, I'll be honest with you. They got some decent players, but they're not a good football team. And knowing they'll scrape their way back into the Championship again, this time through actual legitimate way rather than PPG. So yeah, I think if I had the choice, I'd play Wickham. And then I think Sunderland for me is slot in the middle. Obviously, we've played you once this season, lost, but that was if a manager who didn't even pick the team that day, who had literally an afternoon with him, got to shake their hands, and that was about it. And we probably should have got a point off you. Obviously, this weekend will say a lot. It's a different environment, of course. I'm assuming there'll be a lot of fans there on Saturday. A lot of experiences, which a lot of us have a point of experience before, being quite a young team. So it's going to be interesting to see how they adapt to it all. I think it'll be a tough game. Of course, say if it was this hypothetical situation, we'd be going to your stadium first in the first leg. So I think for me, I wouldn't be too worried about playing Sunderland, but it would very much be the case of surviving the first leg and then just going battering the second leg. That'd be my game plan.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I say, things can change, but I think in Sunderland fan base will be terrified facing anyone at the moment. But this can change. Football is that, all right. Let's just pray to God and hope that something changes somewhere. I think it would be a surprise, if I'm honest, based on current form, but touching on what I've just gone on about, and football's a funny old game, innit? I can't remember who said that. I feel like we might be Brian Clough, but I could be wrong. But if Sunderland are to win this on Saturday, how likely are they? Where are they most likely to do it? Where can they cause problems for MK Dons? Where are you weakest?
It's tough to talk about weaknesses. I generally don't think we're too weak overall as a squad. I'm not being biased. I generally think that's my opinion.
You're third for a reason, aren't you? So
yeah. And I think if you look at it, so what's the difference between us, Wigan, and Rotherham? Okay, so we've conceded 7 more goals than Wigan and 16 more than Rotherham. So there's an instant sort of answer to your question right there. Probably the defence. Now, admittedly, the defence is kind of mixed and matched over parts of the season. Harry Darling's been injured. I think the only consistency has really been Dean Lewington. Warren O'Hara has kind of been all over the place, but he's been consistent whenever he has played, so that's good. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily all down to the back three in terms of the goals we conceded. Sometimes it's been from set pieces, sometimes it's been the midfield not tracking back properly and leaving gaps for like a 10, for example, just roam around out of a shot. So I think if anything, it's just finding ways to exploit the structure of MK Dons and break that down. No, I think over recent times we've been very, very good at working on that. And I feel like you look at our recent results and you'll see that the amount of goals we conceded has dramatically decreased since the start of the season. So I think the way you beat MK Dons is early, first of all, hitting them from the off straight away, first 10, 15 minutes. I think that's another common trend this season, is that going to these away games, especially up north and with a bigger crowd, I think we've struggled early on. And it's taken us a good 15, 20 minutes to A, figure out the opposition, and B, get used to the atmosphere, quite frankly. So I think if Sunderland fans can get loud early on and give the team a lot of confidence and say get an early goal, I think it'd be a really uphill task for Dons to get through. Not saying they couldn't, I just feel it'd be uphill. So yeah, I'd say start fast and find ways to break down the structure, to which not many teams have done this season. And you could get a positive result.
That brings me to the final question that I always ask. You said positive result. I said that with my fingers crossed. I'll go with my prediction first. I think I've had actually more right than normal this year, but I don't know what the atmosphere is going to be like on Saturday. For people wondering, we're speaking currently on Tuesday when the news of the ownership shares just came out, and Twitter's washed with opinions, and most of it very negative, and understandably so. So I can't see us winning on Saturday. I'm going to go 2-0 MK Dons. Wow.
I mean, if that happens, then that is the biggest result of the season for us. I won't lie. Because I mean, looking at your home form, I know there's a lot of stuff going on, and obviously the manager's gone and the new manager's in. But I said you're the second best home team in the league, and you won less points than Rotherham. You conceded the least amount of goals at home. So technically, you're the best defence at home in the league. So I'm quite surprised you're that pessimistic about it all, to be honest.
2 words: Doncaster Rovers.
Okay. I mean, I'm not that positive about the game in terms of the Don's perspective. I think it's very tough. Very tough. I think for Sunderland fans, it's going to be either a fight or a flight in terms of how they approach the game. They can either back the boys' corner on the pitch and really go for it, or as you said, they could turn ugly very quickly. And to be honest, that could be decided in the first 15, 20 minutes. I think if there's no goals or we take the lead, you're in big trouble. Because I think we tend to go into games away from home. That's been the way the whole season, no matter where we've gone, from your Morecambes to your Accringtons, it's been the same every single away game. So based on all that, I'm going to go 1-1. This game's probably the most unpredictable for me the whole season. I think it's a very tough game to call, and it could go many ways, to be honest with you.
Would that be a good point?
I think MK? So. Yeah. It's not what we need. I think we need to get wins now if we want to catch the top 2. But listen, I think getting against a promotion rival, and I said outlawed the home form. If we can get something from only like 14 done this season, get a point at Sunderland at least. So I think that's a good group to be in.
Yeah. Liam, thanks so much for joining me. I think this is about your 7th or 8th appearance. I actually lost count. So
I'm a regular now.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you're not a returning guest. You are a regular, mate. And of course, I'm going to be, for some bizarre reason, you've asked me to come on yours as well. I don't know why. I know nothing about football. So if anyone wants to listen to yours as well, obviously they can do. I'll put the links in the bio and on the tweets and all that kind of stuff. But Liam, thanks as always.
Yeah, no worries.